everybody, and welcome to another episode of Healthy AF. I am so delighted to be here in November, almost. Actually, we're recording in October, but this will drop in November. And I wanted to do a special series in November called Friendsgiving. That may sound odd, but I have a lot of friends in my life who are really important, and I love them very much. And I have a lot of friends in my life who are less important on the daily grind and more important on the long journey. There are people who are on their own path, doing their own work, and we keep up and we sort of watch from afar and we support when we can. And I'm just so delighted to bring in my friend Taylor to share with y'all a conversation about like what personal growth really looks like and what do conversations look like between two people who are growing. You may not have a person in your life who is on a long growth path. And if you don't, it can be frustrating and lonely to not have anyone around you to have these types of conversations. I meet people all the time who say, I never have like a real conversation. I want to have like a real conversation. Well, this is a real conversation, and we're going to share it here with you. And I'm so grateful and delighted to introduce Taylor.
Hey guys, my name is Taylor Keys. I'm the owner of TK Training and Wellness located in downtown Hickory. There's a lot of things that I do. I wear many hats, but most of you will probably know me as a personal trainer. TK Training offers a variety of services, your one-on-one personal training, your group, nutrition coaching, infrared sauna, cold plunge, you name it, we do it. But I guess a little bit about how I got here, how I started my studio and how I ended up, I guess, in downtown Hickory. TK Training actually started in 2019, the summer before the pandemic. And I just was approached by some clients of mine at a wellness center in Lenore to come to their home and do personal training. And so I just, again, just from feedback from those clients and people taking my classes, I just kind of picked up in-home personal training. And the more people found out, the more it grew. And then obviously the pandemic just skyrocketed that because everything was shutting down. Fast forward year of 2022, in the summer of 22, my whole world turned upside down. I was in the middle of a traumatic divorce. Wasn't just losing, who I thought I would spend my life with, but, everything from my livelihood, financially, my home, my church, everything literally flipped on its head. So I just kind of felt like I was in a tornado trying to find land, and I just kept getting hit by shrapnel. But I honestly think that TK Training, the studio itself, opened just out of flight or fight mode. I had to survive, and it was sink or swim. And despite how much I wanted to sink and throw in the towel, God had other plans, and He wanted me to swim. And so I opened up my first studio inside of CrossFit Hickory. And within a year and a half, I grew, and I was able to expand. Basically doubled my space. And now I have my own location right next to the Hum in downtown Hickory. So I'm incredibly grateful to be here. It never passes my mind how grateful I am to do what I love and to have a place to come to that's my home, and all the people that led to this. And so that is not something that slips my mind. It is a pleasure that I get to do what I love every day. So I'm just happy to be here, and I'm happy to share whatever it is that needs to be said. So thank you, Amy. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you. I love that. You're like most of like most of the people I know in my life who have gone through that what just happened to what just happened to my whole world? What just
Yeah.
happened to my home, my
WTF.
marriage,
Yeah.
my soul, my job, my income, like all of it.
Yeah.
My dogs, where are my dogs? Like
Mhm.
all of that. I think like most people that I meet who have that post traumatic growth, we all sort of feel like that. I'm so glad to be upright. Like, I'm
Yeah.
so glad to be breathing today. I'm so glad to be, right where I am. And, I was saying to my mom on the last trip to Hickory, I always say how grateful I am for those moments of shrapnel and life blowing up. And I but I finally had a moment. I think I was in her shower. I'm always having moments in the shower.
That's your place. Yeah.
It is. Um, and I thought, but wait, hey Amy, you didn't have to grow in all of that. You didn't have to grow. You could have survived. You could have become bitter. You could have shriveled up, you
Yeah.
know.
Isolated and shut down.
Yeah, and there were times I did isolate and shut down. It didn't,
Mhm. Yeah.
it wasn't my whole thing, but that was definitely points on the trajectory up. So w- I want to start with an easy question because I think that when you go through, first of all, I should tell all of you that Taylor one time described me after working together as a client coach. Taylor one time described me to a friend as, yeah, Amy's great. She's been through some shit. Like as if that was
Amen.
on my resume. Like, oh, she's a registered nurse. She's a trained nurse practitioner.
She's
She's
been
been
through
through
some
some
shit.
shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now, like, welcome to the other side of that.
Yeah. That's why you're healthy AF, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah, there is. So, how did what is it that you think it is that you see in yourself and others and I'll answer these questions too, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
What is it that you see in yourself and others that takes us from that face down moment, where everything is imploding, to the um, okay, I'm going to grow from this?
That can be a loaded question. But honestly, and I'm going to speak for myself in this way. Um, for me, when I was face down and I did not want to face what I was going through, um, I go back to my faith. Like,
Mhm.
truly, without a shadow of a doubt, I feel like God plucked me up and he carried me. I used to read like the footprints, prayers in like your grandma's, bathroom or
Yeah.
their hallway. And I'm like, oh God, here's another one of those, and it was just kind of like mundane, kind of like what I thought about the serenity prayer. Like it's an
Yep.
everybody's thing, and I just kind of like shook it off. And it wasn't until I was in the midst of that and people were asking me after the fact, after I finalized my divorce, after I started my business, and they started finding out what was happening because I was
Mhm.
very, very quiet.
Yes, you were.
Um, I was humiliated. I was ashamed. Um, I didn't know my head from my rear end. So I was very quiet. And so I really tried my hardest to keep my professional and my personal very separate. Um, so it wasn't until I started my healing journey, going to a mental health therapist, going to yoga, quitting CrossFit, and starting to move my body in ways that I needed it and not necessarily out of self sabotage. I wasn't trying to exercise to beat myself up or to starve or whatever to punish myself, but it was when I started working on my mental health, Amy. Granted, my therapist is also, she's a Christian therapist, and her specialty is in relationship and family trauma. Um, that was the thing that manifested all the other things. Um, I started doing things that I enjoyed doing again: journaling, drawing. Yoga was hard for me because it meant I had to be still. And I remember the first time my therapist said this to me, and I wanted to throat punch her. I'm
I've
not
had those
kidding.
moments with my therapist when she
I'm
says,
not kidding.
"Amy, you don't have to get married to this idea, but would you?" And I'm thinking, like, girl,
I've already made up my mind. Yeah.
don't be putting that idea in there, mind. So
Yeah.
go ahead.
So she said to me, feeling is healing.
Mhm.
And I was like, well, that's a bunch of bull, my whole life I have packed stuff down.
Yep.
And to me, the busier I was,
Yep.
I felt like the quicker I got through it. I didn't have to see it. I would just suppress it and then move on. And then one day I'd wake up and I'd be through it.
Yep.
But I didn't realize the decisions that I had made that led me up to that point, that the reason why I had made those decisions were from and derived from my trauma.
Mhm.
Um, and I used to be naive about what trauma was. Like, I used to think that trauma was like, uh, you know, um, something, just what we put up as like the most, I don't know,
Like you've
awful
been locked in a
crime that
closet for 12 years and fed
yeah, I've been
oatmeal underneath the crack.
yeah, like
Yeah.
I'm Harry Potter underneath the stairs, or
Yep.
somebody's raped me or left me for dead, or
Yep.
murder.
Yep.
But I realized there was all kinds of trauma. It wasn't just physical trauma. There's all kinds of emotional trauma. And even for kids, and people that had what they needed, we had a home, we had parents that were together, we had, uh, you know, we had our basic needs met. But there was still dysfunction in our home. And anyway, all of that just kind of spiraled in my
What was it
mental.
like for you to have that moment? Like when I had I'll tell you, when I had my first moment of uh realization that my upbringing was both like great and fun and run around in the woods and going to church and having great neighbors and
Yeah,
completely like no trauma, like nothing happening, like
right,
no bad things happening.
right.
And there was a day I wrote down my childhood story that a sponsor had asked me to write down,
Mhm.
and I slid it across the table to her for her to read it. And she reads it and she turns it around and she pushes it real slow to me and she says, "That's a lot of trauma." And
Yeah.
I busted out crying because I didn't even really realize it. So what it was for me was like validating that little girl. And also, like, I had that moment of, but that's not that doesn't happen to me.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I was shocked. I was like, but that doesn't make sense. I was fed and I was clothed, and
No.
like I didn't go without. My parents weren't bad parents. Like, I didn't have they did the best they could with what they had. They were young. My dad was disabled. There was just a lot of things. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized that my mom was 19. She became a
Mm.
mother and a wife and a provider all at once. And I try to think about who I was at 19. And I'm like, thank God,
Yeah, no,
because
girl.
I wouldn't have survived. I don't know how I would do at 32.
Yeah.
um, so I think to myself now, when I look back, I'm like, man, my mom was so strong. She endured so much, and I was so hard on her.
Mm.
And I've never given her a lot of grace. Never. I've been very, like, matter of fact, like very intolerant of my
Mhm.
family to some extent. But um I think it wasn't until some of these things tried to surface and I started to put some things together that I was like, oh my gosh, like, if I think about who my mom was to me and then who her mom was to her and who her
Yeah.
mom, like, and I was just seeing this thing. I was like, man, we really come a long way,
Mhm.
like my mom has come leaps and bounds from what she grew up with, and vice versa. My grandmother leaps and bounds from what she grew up with.
Do you think that's part of, when we talk about post-traumatic growth, do
Hmm.
you think that's part of my healing journey has been seeing my parents as human beings? They are
Yeah,
not perfect. They are not solely on the earth to be a mother or a father. They do not have tools. They have some tools. They, have been given generational stuff and given me. I told my children when I started this, I'm like, y'all, I passed on some bad stuff and now
yeah,
it's yours. Like I
yeah,
can't heal it for you.
yeah.
So if you ever want to talk about it, I'll be happy to talk. But at the end of the day, that luggage is now monogrammed with your initials, not mine.
Right, right,
And I gave it to you. My
right.
bad. But
But even you saying that, like, that means so much. Like,
mhm,
being a mother that is aware of what you contributed, good and bad, you
yeah,
know, and being like, hey, I didn't always get it right, and I'm
yeah,
sorry. I didn't
it's
realize
helped
how much
me.
I hurt you, and I'm
It
sorry.
it really has helped. I think when I first started that healing journey, there was so much guilt and shame around motherhood
Mm,
because I had not done it right. And I had given my children whatever I had given my children, right? And that's why I think that it was important for me to see my parents as human beings doing the best that they could and love them for all the parts. And that's what sort of gave me the grace that then I could begin developing for me.
yeah, absolutely. I think, as a kid, um, to me, mom was mom. You know, mom, I didn't think about mom being a wife. I didn't think
You have a
about
name.
mom being a sister and a daughter. Like, mom, yeah, I didn't think about mom being her name.
Mm-mm.
I was just like, my mom is my mom, and that's all she is to me.
Yeah.
And, you said something really important that stuck out, that, that we didn't think about all the other things that they were, or all the things that they wanted to be besides a mom,
Mhm.
you know? And as kids, we don't think about that. Like, we're children and we look to our parents and we look to them for, to provide and comfort and direction and just those types of
Yep.
things. And we don't think about their other roles,
Mm-mm.
because in our world, who they are to us is all they are.
Yes, and I
And,
would even say that that carries out through the lifespan. Like Taylor, who you are to me is who you are, and it's a mistake to think that you actually are that. You
mhm,
are that to me,
mhm,
but that is not who you are. Maybe to yourself, to your family members, to your and so when we paint our family members as who they are to us, it can be a very concrete, limiting, hard place to be,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, absolutely. Um, you know, you saying that, like, to you, I might be, a friend or a cohort, but I also have all these other roles. People forget sometimes when they're working with me, even as clients, that they think that I'm just a trainer, or they're just paying for my hour. And I'm like, you have no idea. Like,
I know.
they have no idea that what goes on behind the scenes of that,
Mhm.
to prepare for that hour, to be a nutrition coach. Sometimes even hybrid clients that, they have more than one service that they are wanting.
Yep.
So people forget all the other roles that I play. But I think now, as an adult, who and a girl, the little girl inside of me still wants my mom,
Yeah.
but the little girl inside of me is still very much hurt.
Mm.
And now, as a woman, trying to navigate that and to heal, and also try not to repeat the behaviors
Yeah.
that I grew up with, so that I'm not doing that, I haven't had the privilege of having kids yet, but if if God sees fit to give me them, I want to make sure I do a darn good job,
Yeah.
and I understand that there's a lot of grace in that too, because I won't know everything. But I think now too, like when me and mom have conversations, is also trying to encourage her that she doesn't have to be my mom anymore, even though she is, but she can
Mhm.
be who she wants to be now.
Yeah.
If she doesn't want to work that job, she can say no. If she, wants to take a class, she can. Like that she now has the, as if she didn't before, I guess, but just taking back her power, I guess, her
Her
power over her
focus.
own life,
Yeah.
to make the decisions that she needs to make for herself. And daddy too. I know for daddy, like that's so limited for him. And I hate that. I really hate that he has that deck of cards. But it's also cheering them on.
Yeah.
Um, so much I feel like of being a parent is cheering your child on, hoping that they do better, they make better
Mm.
decisions to keep them safe. And I feel like if mom looks back, like I feel like mom's done a good job. Like I'm not trying to blow fluff up my
Yeah.
tail, but
Yeah.
um, between God and my family, there's a lot of places that I could have been.
Yeah.
And I'm very thankful that it worked out differently
I
for
know
me.
there are some times when I think about some of the choices I made, and I really am so grateful that I'm sitting here. It's
Yeah,
really very
yeah,
functional.
yeah, yeah. I'm like, man, Taylor,
Yeah.
that was really naive of you. Or,
Yeah. Gosh.
but
Yeah.
now I look at those things and I'm like, I'm going to be okay. Like, I I am confident in the foundation that I have, my morals and my values. Those are very deep and rooted.
Mm.
And
Okay,
so
so
now,
let's talk about that. I keep leaning away from my microphone. I'm gonna get in so trouble. This is
yeah,
just like really we're just shooting the poop. So what I want to know is I think I might have forgotten. What were you saying? Oh, you were
um,
saying morals and values.
yeah,
What
being
what
rooted in that.
what I bump up against with my clients and what I definitely was living in is I had lost me. I
Mm,
could not have told you my morals and it's the same way with my faith. I will say this. Now you said you had your faith to lean into. I've had my faith to lean into for the last couple of years. Now I
mhm,
have always been very spiritual and I have
mhm,
always had certain beliefs.
mhm,
But as for actually, like you said, the serenity prayer having meaning,
mhm,
the seeing the miracles that are happening in my life on the daily, and being aware of those, like I did not have that kind of faith. I had a baseline, I'm going to be okay. Like even when
mhm,
my marriage ended, on that day,
mhm.
I knew I was going to be okay. I could barely breathe and I didn't
Yeah,
know how, but I knew it was going
right.
to be okay. But now I have that sort of more working faith, a faith that works, I guess. So I
Yeah.
totally get that.
Now I will say this, like, while I had, a strong foundation in my faith, when I went through all of that, um, I make it very transparent how I struggled. Like I was very mad at God.
Mm,
I struggled in my faith. The things I thought I wanted, I didn't no longer want.
yeah.
So, and even now, like, it's been almost 2 years, and you know, um, when people ask me like, "Do you want to get married?" and I know that I do. I just don't know when. I don't know what that looks like. Do you want to have a family? I know that I do. I just don't know when.
Mhm,
I'm just very like protective.
mhm,
I'm very shielded of what I have created for myself. I like having my own space. I like coming home and there's no ruckus and chaos. I like coming home and being with my Hank, and
Yeah.
my Hank is my dog.
Yeah.
Just for people that don't know
Oh,
my Hank.
Hank is a dog.
Yes, he's my dog. He's my baby. But it's peaceful.
Yes, it
So
is.
I'm more focused on creating a peaceful quality life
Mhm.
than I am about trying to find a companion or trying to
Yeah.
find somebody else to fill in the gaps. Like,
I mean, I had to find me.
yeah, I'm
You know,
not
I didn't
concerned.
it wasn't that I was totally off base on my values and morals and it wasn't like I was going out, shoplifting or anything, but, um,
I wasn't killing anybody.
I mean, on
We
Thursdays.
thought about it. Yeah. No, yeah. I mean,
So,
no, I would never.
but to really sit with me,
Mm,
just sit with me
yeah.
and really look without compromising.
Mm,
What is okay with me? What is not okay with me? And then knowing that that could shift and change. It's
yeah.
okay with me right now, but it may not be okay with me later.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I would love to get married again. And also, can we have a house with two master suites on either ends?
Yeah. So if I can send you the other direction. Yeah.
Yeah, because I want that time. I want my solitude. And I guess maybe I've never thought about this before, so thank you. I guess what is so precious to me about that time is the work that I do loving myself and finding myself and putting my feet in the fire when I have that time and what life is like when I give that time up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
No, I mean, that's so important.
Yeah.
I'm in a place, Amy, where I think that's what scares me is I never want to put myself in a position where I give that up again. I lost myself.
Yes.
I compromised and compromised and compromised. And some of those were the sake of my values.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, yeah.
there's no telling what I would have went through, what
Mhm.
would have happened if, some of those decisions wasn't left in the other hands.
Yeah.
I would have tolerated a lot of stuff. Um, but I'm also now I look back and I see it as a grace. I
Mm.
see it as it's a mercy to me that God that it allowed things to happen the way that it did. Um, and like I said, as far as my faith, like I really struggle with my faith. Like I don't know, and I've said this to many people. I don't know had I not already had an established faith if
Mhm.
I would have gotten through what I've gotten through and came on the other side believing. And that's really hard for me to say. Um, but it challenged me so much. It made me ask questions: why, how, what, and not just why was this happening to me, but why am I the way that I am? What did I
Mm.
contribute to this?
Mhm.
How am I going to get through this? What am I going to do about it? You know, not just putting the blame on everybody else, but like, okay, what did Taylor do?
Oh, yeah.
And how can Taylor get better? And some of those questions I didn't know. Like if somebody asked me who I was, I might tell you what I did, but I couldn't tell you
Yes.
who I was.
Yes.
I am not a personal trainer. I personal train people, but that's not who
Mhm.
Taylor Keith is. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not those things that I do. There's so much to me that is outside of the role that I serve in. And I had to figure that out.
Mm.
Still figuring it out. And I like you say, like I think it changes. I think
Mhm.
it changes depending on the season of life and things that I learn about myself.
I think for me, it's how it expresses changes. Like
Yes.
I do have a very spiritual faith. I'm never in love with the details of religion. Okay,
Mm,
that is never me.
I agree.
But
Yeah.
one thing I said to my mama this weekend, we went to Rural Hall to see. That's where I grew up, to see some people and see some of her buddies. And these were the people who literally raised me in the church. So I said to many of them, "Thank you for raising me." I said that to one of the dudes, and he's like, "Raise you?" just lucky I survived,
Yeah.
which was true. I put everybody through the ringer,
Yeah.
but I never for a moment thought that I was being punished or that God did not love me.
Mm.
And that is and I said to Mama, I said, thank you so much for whatever was done and was not done. I never for one moment believed that I was not a child of God and not loved. And when my first sponsor said to me, "Are you mad at God?" I'm like, "No." And I meant it. And that was just my path,
Yeah.
but that probably was one of the only things that saved me. I wasn't going to a church at that time, had not been to a church in a long time.
Mhm.
I had become very dissatisfied with the details of religion and
No, I understand. I mean, I think me and you are very similar in that. I don't think that we've always discussed the same way. But I tell people all the time, I'm not a religious person.
Mhm.
I'm not going to mark off your boxes. And me being angry with God and me wrestling with those things, like I was invited. I realized that I needed to get
Mm.
real honest with God, that I needed to have some of those conversations. And it wasn't that God was punishing me. It wasn't that God was, uh, you know, trying to take me out or whatever, is that he was drawing me into deeper relationship with him.
Yeah.
And he wanted me to ask the questions.
Mhm.
He wanted me to face what I was facing and stop running away from it, stop suppressing, and get real and honest about who I was,
Yeah.
what I wanted, who he was to me,
Mhm.
and ask those hard questions. And so I think having gone through that, it drew me into a deeper relationship. Like I said, I'm not religious. Like I'm not going to check all your boxes, and
Right.
me and you can, in the same sentence, I'll praise the Lord and say F this.
I once did drop the F bomb while we were praying. A friend of mine had a birthday up here, and we had like a whole handful of girls. I'm like, let's bless her because she has had a really bad year. Like, let's
Yeah.
bless this year. So we're going around the circle. We're praying. When it's time for me to pray, I'm like, man, this has been so effed up. Please, you know,
But
yes,
I
so,
think what that does, Amy, because I feel like I was raised in like what's prim and proper. Like
mm,
you don't cuss, you don't talk about hard stuff. You don't talk about sex and drugs and money
yeah.
and rock and roll. You don't talk about that stuff. That's like your hush hush things.
Mm,
But it wasn't until I got older that I'm like, why are we not talking about this stuff?
yeah.
Like if this is a God that loves me and
Mm,
accepts me in my entirety and knows every hair on my head, then he wants me to talk about this stuff.
yeah.
And he also wants to provide me with a safe space to do it.
Mm,
And so instead of it being like, oh, hush, don't say that in church, I can say these things because sometimes crap don't cut it. Sometimes when you hit your foot on the end of the bed, I
oh,
don't say nice things. Sometimes when my world is falling apart, the last thing on my mind is joy. I'm
yeah.
hurting. I'm aching. And in that moment, I think God is inviting me to be vulnerable with him and say, God, this hurts.
Yeah, I don't
God,
like
I
this.
don't like this.
I accept it, but
And
I do not like it.
I mean, I can't do anything about it, but I'm
Yep.
here. Like you obviously have me here for a reason. And there's nothing about this that's in my control. And I think coming vulnerably to my creator and expressing how I feel and what's going on, I think that is what deepens my relationship with him.
Mm,
I think getting real and honest about what's happening in my life with others, with
mhm,
my friends, with my therapist, with my coach, with my clients, and with my God, that is where that's honestly, I believe, what sets Taylor Keys apart from everybody else
mm,
is that um, I don't think that me presenting myself to know everything and have it all figured out is what attracts people to me.
no, and I hear
Uh,
that all the time. It's the biggest compliment I've ever gotten. Amy's
yeah,
been through some shit.
yeah. I,
And
I,
when I'm on the other side.
yeah, I am more likely to come to you and hire you as a coach, not because, yes, you have all these wonderful qualifications and these years of experience, but that's just a fraction of
Yeah.
who you are. Your life experiences, your vulnerability,
Mm.
what you've been through, you understand me. And I think because you have your own story and because you have fallen flat on your face and you've
Multiple
rose
times.
again and
Yeah.
again and again and again, that you have the gifts and skills to help people. I don't want you to give me a package all primed and propped and be like, here you go, and send me on my way. I don't want a cliche scripture and be like,
Mhm.
God will work all things out for the good of those who love
Yeah.
him. Yes, do I believe that? Absolutely. But I also believe that sometimes it's okay to say, man, this sucks.
Oh,
And this
yeah.
really hurts. And
Yeah.
yes, God still loves you, but God is going to sit in there with you.
Yes.
He's not going to just suppress it with a good old,
Mhm.
well, good luck with that.
I know, right?
He's
Pat
going
you
to
on the
sit in
butt
there
and
with
send you on your
you.
way. Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to hold you and
Mhm.
he's going to cradle you. And when you can't stand, he's going to be your feet. When you
Mhm.
can't speak, he's going to be, your mouth. Like he is going to be all the things that you can't be. And I truly believe that. Like, I don't believe that God would want us to stand out here and preach that we're holier than thou or we got it all
Oh, no.
figured out.
Oh, no.
I think because that's not what Jesus does. Jesus gets in there.
He
Jesus
do.
gets at the table
Ain't nobody
and
like Jesus. He was
no,
busting up like in all the people that were,
no, he's flipping tables. And that's honestly at the end of my days, Amy, I want to be able to say that I was flipping tables. I want people to
Mhm.
say, like, you know, yeah, Taylor messed up. She went through some shit. Um, But man, her faith was solid and she was always flipping tables. And
Mm.
when I stand before God, I believe, like, he's like, Taylor, what'd you do with your life? I'm like, man, I gave it everything I got. I got nothing left.
Yeah.
And so I did that all for his glory and for
Mhm.
the good of his people. It does nothing just for me to keep it in.
Yeah.
Like, I can't carry all this, nor do I want to.
Mm-mm.
And I think it's contagious. When I start talking about the things that I'm passionate about, that are important to me, I think that for some reason it flows and it sets, I don't know, it sets wildfires. And
You know what? A good friend of mine told me very early on my days in recovery. She said, Amy, you can't pour from, it's not pouring from an empty cup. It's not pouring from your cup at all. It's filling your cup so full that it flows
out,
out. And I did that one time. I really wanted to video that. And so Maggie was in here and we had this little cup and we put one chia seed in it and
yeah,
then poured it out, and then one chia seed in it, and then poured it out. And
yeah,
you're just standing there, one chia seed poured out, and then we set it on the table, and we poured chia seeds in it. And when it got to that place where it was so full, I mean, it went everywhere.
yeah,
And I think that's what that is when we take the time to check our values, take the time to see how our values are expressing themselves. Does it feel good? Is it authentic? I can really comfort someone as a mama, and I've been a mama for a long time. I mean, not just in the traditional sense. I was always that friend in high school that was holding everybody else's hair back,
yep,
you know,
yep,
and
okay,
so I've been mothering a long time. I'm a nurse by trade, you
mhm,
know, but back then it was, I'm gonna hold your hand, I'm gonna clean up your sick, I'm gonna take care of you and comfort you. Now it's, I'm gonna see you as big enough so that I can say to you, hey, what do you want me to do here? Do you want me to be your mirror and reflect back, or do you want me to just listen, or where are we going here? Because there may be something that you want to hear,
yeah,
and function in that different way. And so I do think that as we live, we might have the same values, but if you do not like that we had when we were younger, but if you don't take the time to double check, is this the way it's the best expression of this value? Then y- for me, I've gotten off track and not even known it,
Yeah.
right, in my life.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I want to know, um, because we are so conceptual, and I know we both are. And if you look at post traumatic growth, by the way, spirituality in something,
Mhm.
connection, nature, religion,
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
connection, belonging is key for post traumatic growth. I think we've shown that. I want to
Absolutely.
know what your morning routine is or weekly routine. How do you nourish you so that you grow in all those ways and support the growth that you've already had?
Um,
First, I'll go then.
okay. Um, I wouldn't say that this is necessarily a morning routine, but this is a daily thing for me. And I've had to create it for myself because it's definitely something I compromised on. But for me, whether that's going for a walk with my dog, like getting outside, letting the sun hit my face, letting the wind hit my face, um, anywhere in nature is where I feel connected with the spirit. And
Mhm.
so that also settles me, it calms me. I get to be still in those places. When I go to yoga, I have to be still. Some things are hard. It's not just like a meditation or a stretch. Like sometimes it's hot yoga and it's power yoga and I'm dying and it's 115 degrees and I'm like, what the hell is happening? But because I'm in a class and I'm being
Mhm.
taught, it makes me be more aware of my breath, my positions, uh, and sometimes sit in very uncomfortable positions. I positions that if I was in any other time outside of that class, I would not hold for any length of time if I
Yeah.
didn't have to.
Mhm.
So, you know, having gone through or going through my continual healing is getting in places where I'm uncomfortable and getting in places where I'm also seen and I have to regulate.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
some of those things, like I said, are nature. Some of those things are yoga. Some of those things are cold plunge. Some of those things are sauna because those are things that are uncomfortable. I
They
don't
are.
want to sit in a hot box for 45 minutes. I sure as hell don't want to sit in an ice cold 50-degree tub, for any length of time. I think even now, like it's hard enough to get to 5 minutes.
Mhm.
But it's putting myself in a position to lean in to the uncomfortable, to focus on my breath, to center
Hmm.
with myself. And so my non-negotiables there as far as my routine is doing a part of some of that, doing whatever centers me. And that center is being still for whatever that moment is, whatever that um, activity is, whether that's walking my dog, you know, using these amenities, being in yoga. Um, it keeps me balanced. It makes me remember the things that are really important.
Mm.
Um, like you, I tend to hustle and grind and go, go,
Mhm.
go, go, go. And so I have to really make it a point to make those things a part of my day
Mm.
and get still. And so that is one big thing that is like non-negotiable. Like among the other things, like eating and drinking water and going for a
Yeah.
walk and blah blah
Yeah.
blah, all of those things. But at least one time a day, whether that's 10 minutes, 30 minutes, or an hour, that I put myself in a position to get quiet
Mm.
and I don't say anything. I don't listen to anything. I'm just being still. If at most I listen to the sound of water, the
Mhm.
sound of nature, or people huffing and grunting in yoga,
Yeah.
myself included. So that's a non-negotiable for me because it just, again, it helps keep me centered.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally can concur on the nature. I love getting outside. In fact, today I've just been stressed. I got stuff coming up um and it's like my mind is saying like, no, I don't need to be nervous about that. But my body is like all wound tight. So I just went outside and I took like 3 big monster deep breaths right beside a tree, looked at how gorgeous and strong and sturdy that beautiful tree was. And so those are my it's getting too heavy to pick up and I need to do some like self-care right now.
Mhm.
For me, I've dabbled like it looks different at different times, and now with the
Yep,
seasons changing, it may look even it's going to shift again. I know it will because the light is changing, with the clock,
yep,
and the daylight is changing and the temperature, and so I will not probably be doing the same thing, but I figured out there are some big things that if I have them in my week, I'm relatively sane and I'm nourished. I'm
yes,
creative. I feel good. I feel emotionally available for stuff.
mhm,
And those are like a day of a CrossFit workout, day to two of like a ah,
yeah,
and
let it
feeling
out.
so capable. Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
A day of yoga,
mhm,
a day of breakfast with a friend. I
mhm,
love that. Cause and you know what? I will cut that thing out in a heartbeat. When I get busy, I'm like, I don't have time for that.
mhm,
Um, and about 3 or 4 days of like recovery meetings, which is my spiritual development.
mhm,
So and a day of like I stay in my pajamas with my coffee and my dogs and my
yeah,
meditations and I journal.
yeah, that's good stuff.
And if any I just I get so wrapped up, Taylor. Like the first time I went to breakfast with a friend, it was a little bit spontaneous. And it was so nice that I decided that I needed to do that every day. So it always happens like that. I'll have
Yeah,
like a great workout and I'm like, oh my God, I need to do this every day.
yeah,
Or I'll love that meditation and I'll feel so good after I take the time to be in solitude and do the journaling and stuff. And then all of a sudden, my whole new routine needs to be every day, And so
yeah,
finally, I was like, Amy, call back the crazy, man. You don't have to do each of the because it was hard to balance. Okay, so that
yeah,
that leads me right up to that other question that we were talking about pre-show. You're a business owner,
mhm,
you're a dog mom,
mhm,
you know, you're a bill payer, you're a dog, you're all
yeah,
this
all the
stuff.
things. Yep,
You're a human being. I think uniquely, since both of us are in the health and wellness field, we have some promises that we've made to ourselves, to our bodies, to
mm,
our, people who might look to us like children and friends and cousins and clients
yeah,
to live a certain way. And we're business owners trying to build businesses.
and survive. Yeah,
I mean, and breathe every
yeah,
day. So
yeah. It's
what
hard out here.
Yeah. So what do you what sort of your I'll say it this way. Do you always manage a great balance? Yes, no.
No,
Me neither. When you are out of balance, what are your indicator lights that you are out of balance? I know.
first thing, inflammation.
Okay.
Um, I have rheumatoid arthritis, and so my body just gets really stiff, real tight. Everything from like my jaw, my hands, things just it becomes harder to kind of like maneuver. I guess I'm not as mobile. So inflammation, absolutely. I tend to slur, so like I'll be like I guess brain fog, fatigue. That even though I'm going to sleep at the same times, my aura will be like, "Oh, you've slept 9 hours." I'm like, "That's bullshit." Like, I did not
Funny
have a
body.
restful sleep in nine
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah.
I'm really structured about my sleep time and my meals and all the things on paper, but it's when I'm not regulating how I need to systemically, it comes out. So I might be having a dialogue with a client and I'm tripping over my words. My lefts and my rights are mixed up, and
Mhm.
I just can't remember. And I sound like I have a slur. And I get
Mm.
so pissed off in my head because I sound like I'm an idiot. I'm just like, God, Taylor, like, just speak plain English, you know? Or, I know you're educated, you can speak these words. Like, these people are trusting
Yeah.
you to deliver here. So get yourself together. Like, sometimes
Yeah.
you need to have a pep talk.
Yeah.
But my body is just like, I'm shutting down.
Yeah.
Like, you're not managing your stress levels well.
Mm-mm.
And like I said, I can do this on paper. This is discussions I've had with my therapist. I've had with my functional medicine doctor, my nutrition coach, my training coach. Um, I talk about it. Like,
Yeah.
and they look at me and they'll look at my panels and they'll be like, Taylor, you're not managing your stress well. I'm like, well, no shit. You know?
I know it
I'm like,
always kills me when people are.
but I'm trying over here, Like,
Yeah.
I'll get in my sauna and I'm like, breathe,
Mm.
or one of the things that I can't stand, my therapist will do this, and I don't even recognize that I'm doing it. Like,
Yeah.
I'll show up, sit in her chair, and I'm all like crossed, and
Yep.
and to me, I'm comfortable. But she'll pause about halfway through the session. She says, Taylor, I want you to lay back in the chair. I want you to open up your feet and your legs and your arms and just take a deep breath. And it is so uncomfortable. It's like you take a deep breath and it like it like shakes. You're like, like you're just trying not to let her hear you breathe. And
Oh.
granted, she's the expert. She can see all these things,
Yeah.
but I don't even recognize it. And so there's things in my stature that I don't even
Mm.
recognize. Um, and then I realized, like, oh, I was clenching. That's why my
Yeah.
neck hurts.
Mhm.
Oh, I was gripping something. Like, I don't
Mhm.
realize it. And the further along that I get into this, I start to make better correlations
Yes.
and what it is that I need to do.
You know your indicator lights.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And sometimes, like I said, sometimes it's inflammation, sometimes
Mhm.
it's restlessness,
Mhm.
sometimes it's slurring. Um, just, I don't know. Sometimes it's like
Yeah.
stomach issues. I've had constipation or on
I
the other end
really
of that.
I know, right? When I
I'm
want
just like, what the hell?
yeah, when I want to eat everything,
Mm,
I am stressed. When I can't eat anything, it's usually grief. But yeah, when I want to eat everything, when I get really short tempered, kind of
mm,
annoyed,
yeah.
that's usually an indicator light for me. When I isolate, and I do, girl, I'll be like, I don't have time for this, and I don't have time, and I don't have the energy for that, and I just like the shutdown.
Israel.
Yeah, that is one of my big indicators. And usually, I love it that you mentioned your support. You mentioned a nutrition coach and a functional med guy and a training coach and your
Mental health
therapist.
therapist.
Yep, and
You have to
your
have all the tethers
yeah.
because
Oh, girl,
those are
it
when
takes
you
a
have so
team.
many clients, like they're my clients, I say this all the time, like, you guys pay me for accountability and support. And like, I give everything I got. And the last person I want to think about sometimes the other day is myself. Like, I don't want to think about what I got to do. So I need somebody else to be my brain because I've given my brain, my heart, my body to you guys. And so I have to also be held accountable to somebody
Mhm.
that also understands me, psychologically, physiologically,
Yeah.
um, those types of things. And I tell my clients, my clients hold me accountable too.
Mhm.
Because the very things I say to them, it goes right back into me. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
Taylor, you probably should do this. Like, are you doing that? So, like, I have to check myself sometimes.
Oh, yeah. I have to check
But
myself too.
if it wasn't for the people that I'm, attached to, my tethers, um, there's no way in hell that I would keep a stable mind.
Mhm.
Um, and I can tell, like, when I start to lose it, I have them on, like, I'm texting. I'm like, hey, can we set up an appointment?
Yeah.
Next available, please.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm thankful for those that they're very vulnerable. Like, I feel like I pick people that I can connect with and that's going to shoot it to me straight. Like, they
Mhm.
can tell me when I need to pull my head out of my tail.
Yep.
Um, or if I'm not following something, like, Taylor, you need to stop being emotional. Quit eating like that. You're eating like a child. I'm like,
Yeah.
you're right. I
Oh
am.
my God, if somebody told me that, I would be throat punching and
Well,
heading straight to
they
the
ain't lying. You know, I mean, if
well,
something,
now, you
if
can
I
make
get body fat, and I'm like, well, no shit, it's probably all those Reese cups you've been eating.
I
Like,
know. You make a great point, like, um, my business so I just gave up a long time ago. I used to have a lot of shame around like, "Well, Amy, why do you need a coach? Other people don't need coaches. Look at that dude over there. He's not having a coach. Well, look at that girl. What's wrong with you?" That's always the
mm,
underlying story. When I start
yeah,
hearing myself thinking, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, "Girl, that is an old tape and that,
yeah,
we need to take care of you."
yeah,
And I just came to realize that I don't know why I need a coach. But I do know this, when I have a coach, I
I'm
work
better.
better, feel better, contribute more, and it's worth it to me. So, right now I have a life coach. A year ago, I had a business coach. He's the only reason why my business is up. 2 years ago, I was with my both, had my
Hmm.
life coach and my business coach.
Yeah.
And my business coach, after he looked at my personality profile, uh, he knew that, like, there was some mental needs to be done with Amy Chang, because I do go into hyperdrive so fast,
I do
and I
too.
go
Yeah.
into shame so fast
Yeah.
that really, if he just sits across the screen from me and puts the guardrails up on the lane to keep me, I'm rolling forward,
Hmm.
but it helps me
It just
having a
keeps me from
coach.
going in the gutter. Yeah.
Yes, it helps me from having a coach to go, like, forward across those 3 lanes and knock out those 2 people and back, like,
Yeah.
it just
Yeah.
keeps me moving forward faster, better.
Yeah.
And if they
Absolutely.
tell me what to do, this girl will throw a fit.
Yeah.
You know what? Okay. So that's another okay, so I wanted to ask you, what area have you grown in that you never thought you would grow in? Like, you knew you needed to grow in that. I'll give you an example. Mine is patience, among others. I have no patience. My mother has no patience. None of us have any patience. And we've just written it off like it's a concrete block. I am not patient. And yet, I never expected to grow in that area. I have grown so much in my patience. So, what's that area for you that you knew you had a growth spot? You never thought you'd do it. And here you are.
I don't know. That's kind of a hard question. Um, I think probably one of the, I don't know, there's two things that come to my head. The first thing I think is empathy.
Hmm.
It wasn't until I went through what I went through, I didn't realize how naive I was about things. I was very quick to think I knew a lot that I didn't know about. Um, I think, I don't know, maybe just ego or pride, I don't know. But I think it really pulled me on my ass. And um, I think it helped me meet people where they were, not just in their pain, but also physically.
Yep.
Um, Same thing with my rheumatoid. Like there's days I have to adapt sometimes. Like I'll have a flare and I'm just like, my body is shutting down. And had I not have been through these things, I don't think that would had, I don't think I would be as good of a coach or as good of a trainer as I am now. Because I understand chronic pain.
Mm.
I understand loss. Um, I know what it feels like to be in deep, deep, deep valleys. And I also know what it feels like to be a slave in your own body.
Mm.
And I think that because of that, while I'm chronologically young, I've experienced things that help me reach a broad population. And I needed that. And I didn't know that I needed that until I went
Mm.
through it.
Yeah.
Um, I would say the second thing is this all or nothing mentality.
Yes.
I used to have an all or nothing.
Yeah.
And I have learned very quickly that does not serve me. And I think working through my own um, pace,
Mm.
knowing when to push, knowing when to pull back, has also helped me be a better coach and a better trainer because I think what hasn't worked for a lot of people is that we're all or nothing. If it's not
Agree.
working the way we want to at the speed we want, we quit. We give up. We're like, shoot, you know? And honestly, that is the biggest lie
No.
that we believe. Like, just because you're not making progress the way you want to make progress, just because I don't have this whole building yet, just because I'm, not in my, I don't know, just I'm not taking a trip, overseas or whatever. Like, I haven't had a actual vacation in a long time.
I found it
Like,
with dating. This
yeah,
all or nothing mentality with dating.
yeah. If you
All
don't
of my
meet
past,
this, then
yeah,
you're,
all of my past relationships have been like, well, I'll say this. I see the power in people. And once I see that fabulous thing in you, like I'm like, all right, let's go. What
yeah,
are we doing?
let's do it.
Yeah. And it's taught me to like give it time. I build relationship fast because I'll go deep and hard. Like, what are
Yeah,
we talking about?
I get to the nitty gritty. Yeah,
Yep, get vulnerable right now. And when you do that, you do build relationship, I think,
yeah,
a little bit faster. But also for me, the learning has been like, hey, dude, Amy, everybody's not comfortable with that.
yeah,
And you need to give yourself some time too. So everything I've done, I'm like, I'm learning dating. So I'm talking to another coach and we're doing some programming together. And I was like, oh my gosh, it would be so cool if we could do this, and we could do this, and then we could have a weekend event, and we could have a seminar, and we could, and then
you're
I'm like,
like Amy.
but I know, but I'm going to be dating that idea. Okay. I'm just going to date that idea. And they were like, oh, that's okay. That makes sense. After they realized I was indeed not crazy, it made sense, but it's just more of that 100-0. We could
Yeah,
do this and it could be great and it could happen right now. And let's go. And the whole world blurs by the side while you're speeding at 150 miles an hour toward this one thing that you've decided you want to do 25 minutes ago.
yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, I've been that way. Like, I'll be all or nothing, and I'll go 10,000 miles an hour, and I want to know at the end of it why I'm so exhausted.
I know.
I'm like, wait a second, my body's catching up with me. And just like you, like I'm like a ping pong ball. Like, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. Which, again, Amy, this is why I'm sitting in a space that's double what I was. And in the
Yeah.
last
Oh, it's a
year,
skill.
I have
It's a
got an
great
in
tool.
body, a plunge, hired a trainer, hired an assistant. I can go on, and I'm like, Taylor, like, slow the fuck down.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And
so like,
that's where I have to get to. I have to remember that it is the 100-0 thing. I can push to 125. It's a tool I can choose to use when I choose to use it. I didn't
yeah,
used to have that as a tool. I
right.
just had that as a way of living.
Mhm.
Now I can have it as a tool.
Yeah,
Okay, so we're going to have to wrap because we could do this for hours.
I know we could. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, um, well, let's just do this the way we do sessions. Taylor, what are you taking away from this conversation today?
Um, Again, off the top of my head, just being able to share this conversation with you, just I guess one of the biggest things is not failing to be proud of myself
Mm.
at how far I've come. I'm a very critical person to others and to myself. And I think it's really easy to get caught up in that and beat myself up. And to be very proud of my growth. Um, Another thing is slowing down, having the conversations, being in the moment.
Mm.
Um, that's really where the living is. It's the in betweens. It's not the monumental, chapter checklist. It's the in betweens. And I tend to get ahead of myself, and I'm always in fifth gear, going, 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 going. And it's not until I have to downshift, I'm like, oh, this is nice.
Mm.
Um, so a like I said, to slow down and to be proud of how far I've come. Um, to just being able to share the same platform, and space with you, um, to be able to share the things that we go through, to understand each other, to be infectious around each other. I always enjoy our conversations, and every time we have them, like it pours back into me as well. Just thankful to have other people that get it. They
Hmm.
get it. They understand. They're there. They're there again, not as always daily friends, but um, people that are still behind you, cheering for you, rooting for you, and people too that have seen me sometimes in the depths of my despair, and they stuck by me and they
Hmm.
supported me. Um, and I'm just incredibly grateful for that. Uh, and just to have the conversation. I hope that all the things that we have said in my story, um, no matter how just up and down, I guess it was, that it penetrates somebody else, um, and meets them where they are, and that ultimately God will use it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I feel the same way. I think I'm taking away gratitude for your vulnerability and your willingness. Um, I'm taking away inspiration because whenever I sit down with, friends at Friendsgiving and really say, like, hey, I see you. I see
Yeah,
you over there growing, you know, I I get inspired with you and with me. And that's a good place to go. And you're right, it's very nourishing. Like now I'm not so stressed out about the to-do list that I have to do, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I feel
So,
the same way.
and I hope this conversation is moving our listeners forward. And if you loved this conversation, please, for the love of all things holy, like, subscribe, and share it because we all have a friend that we're grateful for. And I'll see you next time on Healthy AF.